presidential election. Results are still coming in, and it does seem to be an extraordinarily tight race between the three main contenders. Here's what we have so far. With 88% of the votes counted, Mitt Romney has 24.5% of the vote, Ron Paul has 21.1% of the vote, and Rick Santorum has 24.6%. Quite incredibly, that means that there are only literally a handful of votes between the two leaders. Tuesday evening's contest launches months of caucuses and primary elections in 50 states right across the country, and it'll culminate in the Republican National Convention in August, where the party nominee will be formally anointed. Well, let's get more on what Iowa means and how this race is going. I'm joined now by Jason Johnson. He's a political analyst and the author of Political Campaigns, One Day to Sell. Jason, thank you very much for joining me here in Iowa. Wow, what a race tonight. We didn't expect it to be this close. What's your initial take on those numbers and how close it is?
My initial take is Mitt Romney's in trouble. He has actually lost votes from how well he did in Iowa in 2008. So the fact that the Republican Party still can't seem to find a nominee, even after almost a year of campaigning, there's going to be some real problems going forward. Okay,
Mitt Romney's in trouble, but he could also come out of this as the front runner from Iowa, right? He could still win tonight.
He could still win tonight, but think about it. After spending millions of dollars and basically having a 4-year head start on people like Santorum and Ron Paul, he's still going to end up with the exact same numbers. And it also means 75% of the Republican voters in this primary didn't want him. So that's not something good for somebody who wants to be a front runner going forward.
The story of the night, perhaps Rick Santorum, is that what you're thinking? The conservative former senator from Pennsylvania who has been campaigning assiduously in this state, doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a lot of organization, but his efforts here seem to have paid off.
He has gone to 99 counties. He has been the road warrior of this campaign. He's gone everywhere. And if that turns out to work for Rick Santorum, if Rick Santorum squeaks out a lead or even a statistical tie with Mitt Romney, he's going to do very well going forward. But again, it's too close to tell right now. No one's really crowing yet. Okay, tell me about Ron Paul, because he was the other candidate that we've been focused on during the cast of the last few days. We've seen lots of people turning out for his rally, lots of young people turning out for his rallies. What do you make of his turnout tonight? Ron Paul's done very well, but Ron Paul doesn't really see himself as a real candidate. He's someone who's a bit of a spoiler. He represents the libertarian.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there 1 second, Jason, because Ron Paul is about to speak. Let's hear what he has to say.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I think you might recognize my wife. Her picture is on that cookbook. Anybody see that cookbook this year? Well, thank you very much. What a delightful crowd. And, you know, sometimes they say, boy, that was a good speech. I said, no, that was a good crowd. That makes all the difference in the world. You know, we talk about, and AJ mentioned, you know, 1 of 3 tickets out, which is obviously true, and 1 of 2 that can actually run a national campaign and raise the money. But there's nobody else that have people like you working hard and enthusiastic and believe in something. That is all the difference in the world. Before I continue with any more comments, I do want to bring, at least step forward, three of our chairmen. You met already, A.J. Stryker and David Fisher would step forward, as well as Drew Ivers, who's been the chairman, and they are on the Central Committee, and they have led the charge all throughout Iowa. But all I can think about in tough campaigns and all the hard work is the work you people do. It is unbelievable, the energy you have and the effort that you have made. But what makes me feel good about it is you're doing it because you believe in something. That is what's worthwhile. But you also know that there's 2 good things. Some people say, well, you guys just do that because you believe in something and promote a cause. Certainly, but how's the best way to promote a cause? That is, win elections. That's the way you promote it. Now, the enthusiasm has been unbelievable. It's fantastic. It's national. Thousands of people now have been involved, not only in Iowa, but around the country, and they're ready and raring to go. But we have to look at the wonderful changes that have occurred in our country in a positive way. The country has suffered a lot in a negative way. The economy's in trouble. Our civil liberties are being trashed. Our foreign policy has been a mess and drains us both economically and our military forces. But at the same time, people are coming together, and we had the task, where we are very successful, is reintroducing some ideas the Republicans needed for a long time, and that is the conviction that freedom is popular. But once again, we have had a fantastic showing for this cause and challenging people, not the status quo that we have been putting up with for decades after decade, but challenge them and saying, you know, let's challenge them. Let's go back to this real old-fashioned idea, this very dangerous idea. Let's obey the Constitution. And too often, those who preach limited government and small government, they forget that invasion of your privacy is big government, and we have to emphasize protecting your personal rights and your economic rights are what the government's supposed to do. They're not supposed to run our lives or spend our money. And also, along those lines, what we have introduced with so much enthusiasm, I hear it so often from so many volunteers. The other day, somebody came up to me, and he was refreshing my memory because he knew I knew the statement because I've said it. Back in the old days, in the early 70s, Nixon said, we're all Keynesians now, which meant that even the Republicans, they accepted liberal economics. He says, I'm waiting for the day when we can say we're all Austrians now. But the biggest change, I think, in intellectual and political changes that we have brought about is the emphasis on a very important matter, making sure we get to the bottom of the ultimate bailouters, and that is our Federal Reserve System. We need reforms there, and we need a new monetary system, but obey the Constitution. This is something that we've made great progress. So the first and initial important step that we've worked so hard, and it's on the table. Today there was a national poll came out, and they were talking about how many people supported the gold standard. How long has it been since they've taken a national poll on the gold standard? And guess what? The majority of the American people believe we should have a gold standard, not a paper standard. But also the great strides that we have made has been really on the foreign policy. The fact that we can once again talk in a Republican circles and make it credible, talking about what Eisenhower said, to beware of the military-industrial complex. Talk about the old days when Robert Taft, Mr. Republican, said that we shouldn't be engaged in these entangling alliances. He believed what the founders taught us. He didn't even want to be in NATO. We certainly don't need NATO and the UN to tell us when to go to war. But we have seen a great difference. The majority of the American people are behind us on this whole war effort. They're tired of the war, costs too much money. Too many people get killed, too many people get injured, too many people get sick, and the majority, maybe 70 or 80% of the American people now are saying it's time to get out of Afghanistan. So those are the issues. Those are the issues that we have brought front and center. They're out there. They're not going to go away. And we have tremendous opportunity to continue this momentum. It won't be long that there's going to be an election up in New Hampshire, and believe me, this momentum is going to continue, and this movement is going to continue, and we are going to keep scoring, just as we have tonight. So So tonight we have come out of an election, and we're essentially three winners, three top vote getters, and we will go on. We will raise the money. I have no doubt about the volunteers. They're going to be there. A lot of you have said, and you thank me and you compliment me and thank me for helping you along. But let me tell you, you helped me along. You helped my family along. All our work, our supporters, because without your enthusiasm, we can't do it. And this is where I feel most obligated. You know, we want to do the job, present the case, and if anything isn't perfect, I worry not about myself. I worry about you and making sure that you're satisfied. I think there's nothing to be ashamed of, everything to be satisfied, and be ready and raring to move on to the next stop, which is New Hampshire. Now, I have another speaker, a special guest tonight. He's been with us this evening. Matter of fact, he's been with us in our campaign for quite a few years. And you may have met him because he's been around here this evening. But I'd like him to come out and say a few words. He's been serving in the military for 10 years, and he's been overseas a lot. A lot of it was in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he was on TV tonight, and he didn't quite get to finish his statement. So I've asked him if he would come out and make his comments about why he supports our foreign policy, why he is fighting for the Constitution, and what he thinks we should do. But I would like to invite out now Jesse Thorson to come out and say a few words to you. Thank you. There you go.
How about Ron Paul? If there's any man out there that's had a vision for this country, it is definitely him. His foreign policy is...
Okay, Ron Paul there giving not exactly a concession speech and not exactly a victory speech. He seems to have come in third here in the Iowa Caucuses. He's the congressman from Texas. He's a libertarian, very fiscally conservative, determined to balance the budget. And he has a foreign policy which some Republicans have had problems with. He's basically anti-war, wants to bring the American troops home, much more isolationist than some Republicans are comfortable with. Let's bring back in now Dr. Jason Johnson, our political analyst. Listening to Ron Paul there with me, Jason, what did you make of what he had to say there?
He wasn't happy. It's like the third place person in Pop Idol. I mean, you're going to say something nice, but you're not really happy to be in that position. Given how well Ron Paul was doing, he really had to assume that he was actually going to be a lot more successful in this campaign than he turned out to be. So he can say nice things about the volunteers, but he really didn't do as well as expected.
Right, and he is a candidate who really needed to get a win here tonight, right?
Right. It's important for him to raise money. It's important for him to realize that he's not just a gimmick candidate. And so coming in third, and especially a distant third, he's going to end up in third place by 3, possibly 4% of the vote. It does not help him overall. Okay,
Jason, I want to ask you about, not about the candidates specifically, but about the turnout, because some Republicans in the last couple of days had been suggesting to me that they thought there was a lot of enthusiasm here in Iowa for this Republican process and that they were going to see very high numbers. It doesn't seem to have been the case. What do you read from that?
Well, it's about the candidates. There's no one here who's really galvanized the Republican Party. You've got Mitt Romney that people aren't that excited about. You've got Ron Paul, who has a sort of a small niche community that's really excited about him. Rick Santorum resurging, but he didn't have a strong base. And so really you had enthusiasm for the process, but not enthusiasm for the people, and that's why the turnout's low.
Okay, so Jason, what does that tell us about November? Because it seems to me we may have learned more about November's presidential election tonight than we thought we were going to.
It means Barack Obama is celebrating right now. It means that he is looking at a field where, as bad as he's doing, as bad as the economy is...
Because he was vulnerable. I mean, exactly. He is still vulnerable.
He's still incredibly vulnerable, but he's got to realize that I might have a chance with this right now if people are that unenthusiastic about the Republican field.
Okay. Looking at the numbers we've got, and of course we don't have all of those, we're still, this is going to down to the wire, but it does look like we have Mitt Romney, Rick Santorum up there very close for places 1 and 2. What's going to be the kind of your takeaway from that particular?
If Mitt Romney wins, he goes forward saying, I'm a front runner, I'm legitimate, it's time for everybody to get in line and support me. If Rick Santorum wins, all the evangelical Christians, all that 75% who don't want to vote for Mitt Romney are saying, maybe we have a chance to vote for somebody else. So you're going to hear two divergent stories tomorrow in the press.
Okay, we've got Newt Gingrich, who, of course, there'd been a lot of hype about Newt Gingrich recently. He's coming up on stage now. He has not done well tonight. Let's have a listen to what he has to say.